Family,
Shalom.
and welcome to another new moon, new month. And give Yahweh thanks and praise that we've made it thus far. This new month brings us closer to the last set of our holy days. So we're one step closer to the last set of holy days. And for those of you, if you haven't started going through anything yet, just hold on to what you got. A lot of us already have started feeling the pinch of being in the midst of the holy days. So if you haven't felt it yet, it's coming. As we back into the culture, or into this culture, some things are more favorable than others. But those of the circumcision are debtors to do the whole law. So we don't get to pick and choose which ones we like and which ones we don't like. But you've got a few that people run to and gravitate and hold on to. And then there's those that we just don't care for. Tonight we're going to go over one of those that a lot of us seem to have problems with, either executing or it being executed towards us. The name of tonight's class is As Many As I Love, I Rebuke and Chasten. Let's begin in Deuteronomy chapter 2. Deuteronomy chapter 2, and we're going to start at verse 1. At this point, we have to wrap our head around the culture in its entirety. We can't pick and choose what part of the culture we're going to walk in, when we're going to walk in the culture, when we're not going to walk in the culture. It's a full force effort, or don't even bother at all. Go ahead.
Then we turned and took our journey into the wilderness by the way of the Red Sea. And Yahweh spake unto me, and we compassed Mount Seir many days. And Yahweh spake unto me, saying, Ye have compassed this mountain long enough. Turn you northward, and command thou the people, saying, Ye are the pass through the coast of your brethren, the children of Esau, which dwell in Seir, and they shall be afraid of you. Take ye good heed unto yourselves, therefore. Meddle not with them, for I will not give you of their land, no, not as much as a foot breadth, because I have given Mount Seir unto Esau for a possession.
So here it is, you coming through their land. They're already afraid of you. And Yahweh say don't even bother them. But just telling some people that would make them just want to do just that. Just to see if it's for real. He said they're scared of us. Let's test it. Let's see if they're really scared. Yahweh said it's their land. I already gave them the land. You are not going to get any part of their land. Leave them alone. But they're already afraid of you. How are they already afraid of you? Because they've heard of how Yahweh deals with us. Go ahead.
Ye shall buy meat of them for money, that ye may eat, and ye shall also buy water of them for money, that ye may drink. For Yahweh thy Elohim hath blessed thee in all the works of thy hand. He knoweth thy walking through this great wilderness. These 40 years Yahweh thy Elohim hath been with thee. Thou hast lacked nothing.
So let's get an understanding. When we get substance, when we get increase, it's not of us. It says Yahweh your Elohim has blessed you in all your works of your hand. So if you're sitting around idle and wondering why you're not gaining anything, understand you're not working with your hands. You're not doing anything to be productive. So why, therefore, would he bless you? It says, by the sweat of your brow shall you eat bread. Go ahead.
And when we passed by from our brethren, the children of Esau, which dwell in Seir, through the way of the plain, from Eloth and from Ezon-Geber, we turned and passed by the way of the wilderness of Moab. And Yahweh said unto me, Distress not the Moabites, neither contend with them in battle, for I will not give thee of their land for a possession, which I have given Ar unto the children of Lot for a possession. The Edoms dwelt therein in times past, a people great, and many, and tall as the Anakims, which also were accounted giants, as the Anakims, but the Moabites called them Edoms. And the Horims also dwelt in Seir before time, but the children of Esau succeeded them when they had destroyed them from before them and dwelt in their stead. as Israel did unto the land of his possession, which Yahweh gave unto them. Now rise up, said I, and get you over the brook Zered. And we went over the brook Zered, and the space in which we came from Kadesh Barnea until we were come over the brook Zered was 30 and 80 years, until all the generation of the men of war were wasted out from among the hosts. And Yahweh sware unto them, for indeed the hand of Yahweh was against them, to destroy them from among the hosts, until they were consumed. So it came to pass, when all the men of war were consumed and dead from among the people, that Yahweh spake unto me, saying, Thou art to pass over through Ar, the coast of Moab, this day. And when thou comest nigh over against the children of Ammon, distress them not, nor meddle with them, for I will not give thee of the land of the children of Ammon any possession, because I have given it unto the children of Lot for a possession. That also was accounted a land of giants. Giants dwelt therein in old time, and the Ammonites called them Zamzimrims, a people great and many and tall as the Anakims. But Yahweh destroyed them before them, and they succeeded them and dwelt in their stead, as he did to the children of Esau, which dwelt in Seir. When he destroyed the Horims from before them, they succeeded them and dwelt in their stead, even unto this day. And the Avims, which dwelt in Hazarim, even unto Ahazah, and Caphtarims, which came forth out of Caphtar, destroyed them and dwelt in their stead. Rise ye up, take your journey, and pass over the river Arnon. Behold, I have given into the hand of Sihon the Amorite, king of
I've given into your hand.
Heshbon and his land. Begin to possess it and contend with him in battle. This day will I begin to put the dread of thee and the fear of thee upon the nations that are under the whole heaven, who shall hear report of thee and shall tremble and be in anguish because of thee.
So understand, when nobody comes to our rescue, when nobody comes to the plight of what we've gone through over here, these are nations from old who may not understand why they dislike the so-called Negro. Sometimes there's just some things embedded in you and you don't understand why or what it is. Yahweh said, this day will I begin to put the dread of you and the fear of you upon the nations that are under the whole heaven. But in order for that to happen, word has to spread. The fear and the dread of you. But we have a problem when something is said about us outside of private quarters. Just as the dread has to be put out there, when we do negative, it's got to be put out there too. Because there's other repercussions and corrections that comes behind those things. But see, we've gotten to a point where we just like everything to stay within private matters. If Yahweh kept this as a private matter, the nations wouldn't fear us. The nations wouldn't hear of the dread of us. Something had to be put out there for the nations to fear the children of Israel. What was put out there? Yahweh's with them. But also, Yahweh gave us laws, statutes, and judgments that were supposed to make us a peculiar people among the nations. Not just the fear and the dread because he's with us. We're supposed to conduct ourselves a certain way, and in order to conduct ourselves that way, we have to execute and deal with one another within the law, statutes, and judgments that Yahweh gave us. So people will look at us and say, these people don't deal the way we deal. Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 17, and we're going to read verses 8 through 13. See, it's all fine and dandy to find out that we're Hebrews, we're Israelites, but what manner in which are you walking? What do people see when they see you, us as a group together? What makes us stand out? Is it our ignorance? Or is it that we're walking in a culture? They see us. But then the question is, how do we want to be seen? How did Yahweh set forth for us to be seen? And in order for us to be seen in that manner, we first have to deal within the culture, within the nation. And sometimes it starts within the house. Most times. It says love starts at home and then spreads abroad. Go ahead.
If there arise a matter too hard for thee in judgment, between blood and blood, between plea and plea, and between stroke and stroke, being matters of controversy within thy gates, then shalt thou arise, and get thee up into the place which Yahweh thy Elohim shall choose. And thou shalt come unto the priests of the Levites, and unto the judge that shall be in those days, and inquire, and they shall show thee the sentence of judgment.
Now this is the last thing that we will do. It says, you shall come unto the priests, the Levites, and unto the judges that shall be in those days. A lot of times we'll go to the heathen before we even come to a brother or a sister. And how can the heathen guide or direct you in Yahweh's culture, in Yahweh's laws? I've said it over and over. The doors are always open, but people make excuses. And then by the time it gets to the judges and the priests, it's helter-skelter. And once it's helter-skelter, there has to be repercussions. But we don't want to deal with that. It's unrighteousness. The funny thing with applying this culture is not just for us. It's for the heathens. And as we learn, we have to apply not within just with ourselves. You might have to apply what you know to the heathen as well. And Yahweh has a funny way of dealing with his servants as you're learning and as you're going forth and as you're walking. You know, earlier today, I'm dealing with rebuke and chastisement in this class. I'm listening to an older guy talking, and he's talking about this desire that he has for his wife's sister. I said, dude, you can't do that. He said, well, what you mean? I said, no, according to scripture, you can't have a woman and her sister in their lifetime to vex them. So his next thing, so I can have her when she's dead? When my wife is dead? Is she married? Yeah, no, you can't have her then either. But you see how Yahweh just don't allow us just to have this just for some knowledge sake? Was I supposed to stand by and not correct his thought process? What happens when Yahweh holds me accountable for that? And this is an older man for me. No, your desires are wrong, brother. And I could see his glee from when he first put it out, going to that. Hey man, you have a good day. Now you got something to go meditate on. Your thoughts are unrighteous. Go ahead.
Verse 10. And thou shalt do according to the sentence, which they of that place which Yahweh shall choose shall show thee, and thou shalt observe to do according to all that they inform thee.
To all, do all that they inform you. Not some, but all. So I said, we are of the circumcision. We're debtor to do the whole law. Not just part of it, not just some of it, not just the ones we like. All of it. Go ahead.
According to the sentence of the law, which they shall teach thee, and according to the judgment which they shall tell thee, thou shalt do. Thou shalt not decline from the sentence which they shall show thee, to the right hand nor to the left. And the man that will do presumptuously, and will not hearken unto the priest that standeth to minister there before Yahweh thy Elohim, or unto the judge, even that man shall die. And thou shalt put away the evil from Israel.
So presumptuously meaning that he hears, but he don't care. He's going to do what he want to do anyway. But it leads to dying. Go ahead.
And all the people shall hear and fear and do no more presumptuously.
So if we keep this a private matter, how will all the people hear and fear and do no more presumptuously? The whole fact of hearing and fearing is so we can help one another along the way. That way, if I'm slipping and you know, hey, you can come and help. When you see it, then you be like, hey, I remember what happened to that last person that did that. That won't be me. But if we keep it a private matter, then how will the people hear and fear and do no more presumptuously? When something of us and wrongdoing gets out, we tend to want to run instead of using it as a way to correct ourselves and get rid of that weak link so that you can move on to work on the next weak link. But every time I've seen that we have to come to this with anyone, most people pick up and run. How are you going to get any better? How are we going to get any better? This is all for the betterment of the nation, not the individuals. That way we can see, okay, this person went through it and overcame it, and they're still standing. Let's go to Numbers chapter 12. Numbers chapter 12 and start at verse 1 for me, please.
And Miriam and Aaron spake against Moshe because of the Ethiopian woman whom he had married. For he had married an Ethiopian woman. And they said, Hath Yahweh indeed spoken only by Moshe? Hath he not spoken also by us? And Yahweh heard it? Now the man Moshe was very meek, above all the men which were upon the face of the earth. And Yahweh spake suddenly unto Moshe, and unto Aaron, and unto Miriam, Come out ye three unto the tabernacle of the congregation. And the three came out.
Now, it seems like this chapter keeps coming up over and over and over and over. And every time this chapter comes up, there's so much meat in this one chapter that can be found in different perspectives. Now, verse 4, and Yahweh spake suddenly, Come unto Moshe and unto Aaron and unto Miriam. Come out you three unto the tabernacle of the congregation. Come out. If somebody tells you come out, that means you're inside, right? He said, come out to the tabernacle. If we look at the picture and he said, come out, what happens? Do we see what's around the tabernacle? There's people outside. People live all around the tabernacle. So guess what that means? Everybody sees it. This was a public example being made. Yahweh said, come out. This is not going to be a private chastisement. This is not going to be a private rebuke. Everybody going to see. Go ahead.
And Yahweh came down in the pillar of the cloud and stood in the door of the tabernacle and called Aaron and Miriam, and they both came forth.
So now, here go the separation. So Yahweh comes down the pillar of the cloud, and they see that Miriam and Aaron is separated from Moshe. Now you say, uh-oh, them two in trouble. Moshe standing off to one side. So of course everybody, hey, what happened? What's going on? Because Them two seem to be in the thick of it with Yahweh. Go ahead.
And he said, Hear now my words. If there be a prophet among you, I, Yahweh, will make myself known unto him in a vision, and will speak unto him in a dream. My servant Moshe is not so, who is faithful in all mine house. With him will I speak mouth to mouth, even apparently, and not in dark speeches, and the similitude of Yahweh shall he behold. Wherefore then were ye not afraid to speak against my servant Moshe? And the anger of Yahweh was kindled against them, and he departed. And the cloud departed from off the tabernacle. And behold, Miriam became leprous, white as snow. And Aaron looked upon Miriam, and behold, she was leprous. And Aaron said unto Moshe, Alas, my master, I beseech thee, lay not the sin upon us, wherein we have done foolishly, and wherein we have sinned. Let her not be as one dead, of whom the flesh is half consumed when he cometh out of his mother's womb. And Moshe cried unto Yahweh, saying, Heal her now, O Elohim, I beseech thee. And Yahweh said unto Moshe, If her father had but spit in her face, should she not be ashamed she not be ashamed 7 days? Let her be shut out from the camp 7 days, and after that let her be received in again. Excuse me.
So at this point, Miriam is put out from the camp. Do we think that everybody's just sitting around and not going on with their daily routines while Miriam is sitting out for 7 days? No, Miriam is the one who has to look within while standing without and watching everybody go about what they're doing and not being able to partake in what they're doing. That's a punishment. The leprosy was one punishment, but standing outside and watching everybody go through with their daily routine and you can't participate, that's also a part of the punishment. But some people would think that's unfair. Is that not how we were raised as children? When we were punished, there were certain things that you were not privy to anymore. And for my generation, that was not going outside. Can't threaten this new generation with not going outside. They're gonna be happy. All the stuff they want is inside anyway. But she is standing without, looking in, while everybody's going on with their daily routine. No, you cannot partake in these things for the next 7 days. And she dealt with her punishment and came back in. And you heard nothing else about Miriam doing anything stupid. But Yahweh did what? Come out, you three. So the whole assembly can see me deal with y'all. Go ahead.
And Miriam was shut out from the camp 7 days, and the people journeyed not till Miriam was brought in again. And afterward, the people removed from Hazarath and pitched in the wilderness of Paran.
All right, my brother, thank you. Proverbs chapter 24, and we're going to read verses. We're going to. Proverbs chapter 24, we're going to read verses 23 through 34. So that's Proverbs chapter 24, and we're going to start at verse 23. I understand how we love our privacy, but certain things done in private, well, Scripture already tell you all things done in the dark shall come to light. But do you want it to come to the light when you have no opportunity to fix it? Or do you want it to be revealed while you still have an opportunity to get it right? Proverbs 24.
These things also belong to the wise. It is not good to have respect of persons in judgment. He that saith unto the wicked, Thou art righteous, him shall the people curse, nations shall abhor him. But to them that rebuke him shall be delight, and a good blessing shall come upon them. Every man shall kiss his lips that giveth a right answer. Prepare thy work without, and make it fit for thyself in the field, and afterward build thine house. But not a witness against be not a witness against thy neighbor without cause, and deceive not with thy lips. Say not, I will do so to him as he hath done to me. I will render to the man according to his work. I went by the field of the slothful, and by the vineyard of the man void of understanding, and lo, it was all grown over with thorns, and needles have covered the face thereof, and the stone wall thereof was broken down. And then I saw and considered it well, and looked upon it, and received instruction. Yet a little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to sleep, so shall thy poverty come as one that travelleth, and thy want as an armed man.
So if we look at verse 30, I went by the field of the slothful, and by the vineyard of the man void of understanding. If you jump down to verse 32, you void of understanding. Do you stay in that ignorant state? This is the outcome of the man who is void of understanding. Did it have to stay that way? He let it stay that way so much till the vineyard of the man void of understanding, and lo, was all grown up. It takes time for thorns and thistles and all that to grow up over it. So that means he stayed. He was quite content in that state of not understanding. But this is what he says. Then I saw it and considered it well. I thought about his situation and his circumstances. I looked upon it and received instructions. So I'm not going to stay in the state of being void of understanding. Let me go where I can receive instruction. Sometimes we read the scriptures and you don't have an understanding of what's going on. Sometimes you might see a brother dealing with a situation or a sister dealing with a situation and you don't understand why they dealt with it that way. Go receive instruction instead of staying in that place of not understanding. But because of pride, we won't ask certain questions. Because of pride, we don't want to be dealt with in certain manners in a public setting. But where does pride lead us? Where does pride get us? We're the only ones left void of understanding. I can sit here and we've got kids in the room and I can tell y'all there's no such thing as stupid questions. There's just unanswered questions. Most of us adults, let's go back and think of your school days and those questions you didn't ask. Because pride, you didn't want to be ridiculed. I look back in some situation, I said, man, I wish I had applied myself more. But what? I allowed certain teachers to say, oh, we know you got this. Don't worry about it. We're going to pass. Yeah, I passed. But had I applied myself, I could have gotten out of that class and went to something that was going to bring me up to a higher level. But sometimes we get content in just knowing that, hey, I can skate just enough to get by. What happens if just enough don't get you in the kingdom? Those are things we got to consider. Are we going to let pride stay in the way? There's several people from they come through the building. The way they deal, I can look at and say, that brother going to be all right. That sister going to be all right. Because off the rip, they might ask some questions. I sit there and go like, did you really just throw that out on the table in front of everybody? But where else to throw it? Because you don't know who at the table may have the solution to your specific problem. I praise Yahweh for even the questions that come in through Bible study. Because a lot of those questions that come from Bible study, there's other people that had the same questions but won't ask. And a lot of those questions we've gone over again, but guess what? Sometimes when we go over it again, it brings a whole new understanding, a whole new level. And sometimes we have to be re-educated on the things we think we already know. My brother, let's go to 1 Timothy chapter 5. And we're going to read verses 17 through 25. First Timothy chapter 5, and we're going to start at verse 17.
Let the elders that rule well be counted worthy of double honor, especially they who labor in the word and doctrine.
Let the elders that rule well be counted worthy of double honor, especially they who labor in the word and doctrine. I'm going to read that again. Let the elders that rule well be counted worthy of double honor, especially they who labor in the word and doctrine. Meditate on that for a minute. See, we throw that word around, elder, 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 as if it's a gift. We use it very loosely. But there's some stipulations that come. Let the elders that rule well be counted worthy of double honor, especially they who labor in the word and doctrine. Go ahead.
For the scripture saith, Thou shalt not muzzle the ox that treadeth out the corn, and the laborer is worthy of his reward.
For the scripture says, You shall not muzzle the ox that treads out the corn, and the laborer is worthy of his reward. So a lot of people don't want to hear the elder speak, especially those who are versed in this word. That's muzzling the elder. If you don't want to go talk to the elder, you are muzzling the elder without even knowing that that's what you're doing. If you got to grab to some brother or some sister who you don't even know how long they've labored in the word, then at that point, you putting a muzzle on the elder, spiritually. And I mean your elder brothers and sisters. You have muzzled them. Go ahead.
Verse 19. Against an elder, receive not an accusation, but before 2 or 3 witnesses. Them that sin rebuke before all, that others also may fear.
Them that sin rebuke before all, that others also may fear. If we keep it private, how will others fear? We have to get this right. For my sakes, for your sakes, for our sakes, we have to be able to deal in this manner. I don't care if it's me and I'm wrong. I don't care if it's the elder and he's wrong. It says rebuke before all. But there's a way you do things. Because sometimes we get so with the familiarity that we become very disrespectful in how we deal with things. So before we just be our normal selves and just pop off at the mouth like we like to, let's consider how we're going to approach the situation and deal with the situation tactfully in a righteous manner. Because a righteous situation can become unrighteous in the way you deal with it. Go ahead.
Verse 21. I charge thee before Elohim and the Adonai Yahshua, the Mashiach, the elect and the elect angels, that thou observe these things without preferring one before another, doing nothing by partiality.
And this is what I said earlier, how we choose and we gravitate to certain parts of the law and run to it. And then others, we wish we never heard it. That's dealing with it in partiality. Go ahead.
Lay hands suddenly on no man, neither be partakers of other men's sin. Keep thyself pure. Drink no longer water, but use a little wine for thy stomach's sake, and thine often infirmities. Some men's sins are open beforehand, going before to judgment, and some men they follow after.
So, do you want your sin to be before you, so you have an opportunity to correct it, or you want it to follow after you? So now you got to deal with it when the books are open. Open mine's up beforehand so I can deal with it. Give me the opportunity to correct mine. But if we're not open with each other to rebuke, sometimes a brother might not understand that they are in the way of sin. I don't know everything. But the beautiful thing is we all have this book. And we can all sit down and reason out of this book. And rebuke and chasten without this book. From within this book. If you are beyond rebuke, or if you feel that you're beyond chastening, you have chosen the wrong walk. And it will end up being to your own detriment. Now, brother, can you read the definition for sin for me, please?
Sin, H819, Ashma, feminine of H817, guiltiness, a fault, the presentation of a sin offering, trespass offering, I guess.
So it says offend. So do we understand the word sin also goes along with offend? But how do you offend? Let's go to Luke chapter 17. Yahshua says offenses must come, but woe unto him by whom the offense comes. Luke chapter 17, and we're going to read verses 1 through 5.
Then said he unto the disciples, it is impossible, but that offenses will come. But woe unto him through whom they come.
So it is impossible that you go through life and not be offended. If you go through life and you haven't been offended, you must be living in a bubble. Go ahead.
It were better for him that a millstone were hanged about his neck, and he cast into the sea, than that he should offend one of these little ones. Take heed to yourselves. If thy brother trespass against thee, rebuke him, and if he repent, forgive him. And if he trespass again thee 7 times in a day, and 7 times in a day turn again to thee, saying, I repent, thou shalt forgive him. And the apostles said unto the Adonai, increase our faith.
Increase our faith in how we deal with this situation. Take heed to yourselves. If your brother trespass against you, rebuke him. Some of us have a hard time with the rebuke, with giving the rebuke, while we have another problem with receiving rebuke. And then you've got those who love to give the rebuke but can't receive the rebuke. Just weights and just balances. If you give it, you got to be able to receive it. None of us are above the law. Read the definition there for trespass, please, my brother.
Trespass, H4604. Ma'al, from H4608. Treachery, that is, sin, falsehood, grievously sore, transgression, trespass.
All right, the next chapter we're going to go through, we're going to read Revelations chapter 3. But Proverbs chapter 27 and verse 5 states, open rebuke is better than secret love. Here we go with that open rebuke again. Open rebuke is better than secret love. Is that secret love that we want to keep everything inside? Don't tell nobody. Keep this hush hush. But that secret love is going to lead to your detriment. So it's better if I rebuke you and hopefully you'll live. You get an opportunity to correct your ways. Because now everybody's looking at you. And you worried about that. Go ahead, my brother.
As many as I love, I rebuke and chasten. Be zealous therefore, and repent. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hear my voice, and open the door, I will come in to him, and will sup with him, and he with me. To him that overcometh will I grant to sit with me in my throne, even as I also overcome, and am set down with my Father in his throne. He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit saith unto the churches.
So Yahshua states, as many as I love, I rebuke and chasten. This is Yahshua speaking. So let's see if he actually was just saying some words, or if he really applied what he said. Let's go to Matthew chapter 16. Matthew chapter 16, and we're going to read verses 21 through 26. Let's see if he stood by his own sayings.
From that time forth began Yahshua to show unto his disciples how that he must go unto Jerusalem and suffer many things of the elders and chief priests and scribes, and be killed, and be raised again the 3rd day. Then Cephas took him and began to rebuke him, saying, Be it far from thee, Adonai, this shall not be unto thee. But he turned and said unto Cephas, Get thee behind me, Satan, thou art an offense unto me, for thou savorest not the things that be of Elohim, but those that be of men.
So, verse 22, Cephas started to rebuke him, but who got rebuked in the end? He started, but he thought he had a good thing going on. But he the one that we would say ended up with egg on his face, right? Go ahead.
Then said Yahshua unto his disciples, If any man will come after me, let him deny himself, and take up his cross and follow me. For whosoever will save his life shall lose it, and whosoever will lose his life for my sake shall find it. For what is a man profited, if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul? 17.
And there we have it right there. It says, whoever shall lose his life, right? If any man will come after me, let him deny himself. That's the hardest thing to do. We live in this flesh all day long. And take up his burdens and follow me. Let's go to Matthew chapter 26. So we just read about Cephas getting rebuked. He started to rebuke him, but it didn't go in his favor. Matthew chapter 26, and we're going to read verses 51 through 54.
And behold, one of them which were with Yeshua stretched out his hand, and drew his sword, and struck a servant of the high priest, and smote off his ear. Then said Yeshua unto him, Put up again thy sword into his place, for all they that take the sword shall perish with the sword. Thinkest thou that I cannot now pray to my Father, and he shall presently give me more than 12 legions of angels? But how then shall the scriptures be fulfilled, that thus it must be?
So this disciple thought he was doing a good thing. We don't look at it, but this is happening in public where he's being rebuked. He said, man, put up your sword. They that take the sword shall perish by the sword. That's no kind sayings. This is not being done in private. There's other people standing around while this is happening. And then he starts saying, what? You don't think I could call on my Father and he sent me 12 legions? This is public rebuke and correction in the situation. How then would the scriptures be fulfilled? Let's go to John chapter 18. That's John chapter 18. And we're going to read verses 10 through 11. As we read these, remember, it was Yeshua who said, as many as I love, I rebuke and chasten.
Then Simeon, Cephas, having a sword, drew it, and smote the high priest's servant, and cut off his right ear. The servant's name was Malchus.
Now, is this the same Peter that we heard say, get behind me, Satan? He says, those that I love, I rebuke and chasten. Here he go dealing with Peter again. In another situation. Go ahead.
Then said Yeshua unto Cephas, Put up thy sword into the sheath. The cup which my Father hath given me, shall I not drink it?
This is being done in the public. He said, those that I love, I chasten and I rebuke. We understand the position of Cephas, right? Now, please, somebody tell me where we ever heard of any rebuke being done to Yehudas Iscariot. Can any of you recall? Any chastisement? Nothing more than you've said. He never chastised him. Hey, I'm not chastising the devil's kids. But he said it. Wasn't it also Cephas when he said, hey, couldn't you not watch 1 hour with me? Cephas was constantly getting jumped on. But we see what happened in the end with Cephas. Those who I love, I chasten and rebuke. So if you're not being chastened or rebuked, you might want to really think about where you stand. At some point, you've got to do something wrong. We all try our best not to step on toes. But at some point, it's going to happen. And we have to deal with it. But we can't run from it. Cephas didn't run from it. And look where he rose to. Here's a question. It says, this is from an article that came from the Baltimore Sun. Does shame work better than jail? Humiliation. Some judges find they have few repeat offenders if criminals are forced to publicly humiliate themselves, frequently by wearing signs declaring their guilt. A drunken driver is ordered to carry his wallet pictures of the A drunken driver is ordered to carry in his wallet pictures of the people he killed. A wife beater must apologize to his victim from the courthouse steps with cameras rolling. A shoplifter is forced to pace outside the market from which he pilfered, wearing a huge sign that brands, "Here, a convicted thief." It is justice by sandwich board, tearful apology, and posted placard, the modern versions of the stocks and scarlet letters of colonial times. A small but attention-getting group of judges across the country, fed up with a revolving cast of drug buyers, drunken drivers, Johns and shoplifters who never seem to get the message, has been sentencing criminals to shame. They hope public humiliation succeeds where jail habitually fails. I think this type of sentencing is important, says Ted Poe, a district judge in Harris County, Texas, who has become nationally known for what he calls public punishments. Daniel Alvin of Reesboro, Georgia, didn't. He was convicted of theft for running a bogus fundraising scheme in 1996. Rather than spend 6 months in jail, Alvin chose a judge's alternative, which required him to walk through a square next to the Liberty County Courthouse wearing a sandwich board that declared, "I am a convicted thief." It was a choice he may now regret. Alvin was so frustrated by the attention his sentence drew that he recently hung up on a reporter who called to ask about it. "You don't know how many reporters have harassed me over this," Alvin said when he called a second time. "It is over. I just put it behind me." Poe says that of the 59 shaming sentences he's given out in the past 3 years, he knows of only 2 offenders who have been arrested again. Poe's interest in humiliating criminals started when he sentenced a man who had beaten his wife. It was obvious she was embarrassed by his conduct, and he was not embarrassed by his conduct, says the judge. He forced the man to serve jail time and to apologize to his wife in public. After he did that, says Poe, he was humiliated and he didn't like it at all. After Poe ordered a shoplifter to advertise his crime outside the store from which he'd stolen, the judge got calls from the store manager saying the number of thefts had since gone down. Mothers brought their children to see the pacing criminal as an example, and the offender himself, who has since moved to another state, wrote to the judge to say the shaming in the long run was the best thing that ever happened to me. Now we understand why Yahweh says certain things must be public. The man said only 2 offenders. And at the end of the day, Lucifer's kid's gonna do what Lucifer's kid's gonna do. And to lose 2, that's a small loss. So this that they're doing is nothing new. Yahweh said that this is what the children of Israel is supposed to do when it comes to his laws, statutes, and judgments. Family, let's walk righteous before Yahweh and do what we have to do to keep each other on the path. Yes, we are going to lose a few, but at the end of the day, it says only a remnant. Let's do our best to be a part of that remnant. That's all we're going to do for this evening. Enjoy your new moon. Shalom, family.
Shalom.